our business plans in terms of operations, sales, and various aspects of the organization are by nature commercial, and it means that there would therefore need to be some financial commitment to be made. We already have quite a lot of business plans that are geared towards revenue generation that the previous board had tasked the management team with. And those have not been approved, and they've really affected our financial viability as the institution. And each and every one of those, if we're to approve them, it means there would be some kind of financial commitment that would need to get into. So considering all of those factors, we have been engaging with the department to say, is there any way that that paragraph could be reviewed or completely removed? Because there is no way you can make decisions in our organization without some kind of financial commitments. So precisely because of that, Chair, we still are engaging with the acting DG and the various members of the DCDT team. Thank you.
Was major quantified?
It
would imagine National Treasury I know I'm asking the wrong person here, but I've always understood National Treasury to place parameters. You know, they would say contracts of this value you can proceed without going on tender. There's always value attached to. Now, I don't understand the term major as to whether that was qualified. What constitutes a major financial commitment? So just for clarity on our side, in our engagement with National Treasury moving forward.
No, it wasn't quantified, Chair. We operate using the delegation of authority framework, which stipulates the threshold in terms of approval. So all of the business plans I'm referring to, they've been approved at EXCO. So the next level would have been board approval, which is exactly where the issue is. So to respond directly to your question, that has not been qualified.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, let's get the acting DG first. I think he wants to add. And then my Honorable Liz, Honorable Somi, Honorable Hatep. Just stand by, colleagues. Acting DG.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to members. My name is Omega Shelembe. I'm the Deputy DG responsible for SOE oversight in the department. I just wish to correct something slightly in the input of the GCEO. The letter of the department of the ADG communicating the designation was dated the 15th of Feb. And then we had a meeting subsequent to that whereby the GCO and his team alerted us to the difficulty in paragraph 4.1, which was saying he may not enter into significant and long-term commitments during this time of designation whilst the board is forthcoming. After that, the department then consulted with National Treasury, who had granted the approval for the designation. And then Treasury has since advised that that paragraph was not prescriptive. It was essentially advisory to the CEO that in all likelihood he should not enter into those contracts, but should the need arise, that those be entered into, he should do so in terms of the good corporate governance practices. In other words, taking into account the recommendations of EXCO and making sure that the decisions are sound and correct when he effects them. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Yeah, sounds like semantics now. Because you may not, but it's advisory. Yeah. Honorable Liz, Honorable Somi, Honorable Hateb, I don't know, in the interim, can we get a copy of that letter so we can just have sight of the wording that can be sent to Mrs. Kabindo, Mr. Kali? Zamban?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Group CEO, I would request, Mr. Chairman, that we don't use all these letters if we can. I mean, CEO is something internationally recognized, but I'm hearing kind of A's and all sorts of things coming in. I assume that's acting, means acting, but let's be more clear about who we're talking about, please. Mr. Chairman, the Group CEO and hasn't introduced himself as far as I know, so I'm sorry, I haven't, if you have, I've forgotten your name, but Mr. Chairman, appears, I mean, we got a letter, there's a paragraph that's at issue, so I would assume that the Group CEO is not yet the accounting officer. So the SABC at this point doesn't have an accounting officer in that sense. And then the whole discussion about these plans and matters that have been determined or decided, agreed to, approved by the executive. It seems just outrageous that let's assume that the GCEO accepts the appointment. He is party to making the decisions in the ExCo, and now he's going to approve them as the designated accounting officer. I mean, that's a huge conflict of interest. It cannot be. It just cannot be. The board must surely be appointed. We've heard nothing to justify the delays. We've heard the deputy minister tell us that the problem lies, or not the problem, but the delay lies with the presidency. But no details of what those delays are caused by, how long it will take, when the board will be appointed. I would have thought, as the minister or deputy minister, you would be shouting at the presidency and saying, I want answers, please. When are we going to get answers? It's your responsibility. It's no good just saying, well, the president's dealing with it, therefore I must just sit back and wait. I can't see that that's the right way to handle it, but anyway, I'm not the deputy minister nor the minister who's chosen yet again not to be here. So, Mr. Chairman, my question really is twofold. Is the GCEO the accounting officer as we speak? And if he is or is intending to accept the appointment, surely there's a conflict of interest with regard to decisions that he was involved in at executive level, which now he has to make a second decision at board level.
All right. Honorable Somya, Honorable Ladebe, stand by.
Well, thank you very much, the Honorable Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Firstly, let's have an indication that in the last meeting that we had here, I think it was the 25th of November, the matter at hand had reference at the time. And that issue was the available exposure, which could be somewhat averted through the application of the element of the law. And the law that we referred to had reference to the Public Finance Management Act, which would allow the CEO, GCO in this instance, to be given time to act in the position in the absence of the appointed board. And therefore, today it is somewhat reported, let alone this pointing towards various directions in terms of the actual receipt of the correspondence. and therefore the GCE has been designated as the acting board currently. Something which we had issue as per our own record, meaning one, we must ensure appreciation of the fact that there has been some action towards that angle. It's fine. And the second level would be the risk that carries. I think Honorable Liz is alluding to that kind of a risk, more so if you look into the current audit that we carry. And that risk then goes to the effect that would want to see a permanent board appointed as soon as possible to avert that level of risk. So we need to hammer that point. That's what we would want to see going forward. The problem now is then the General CEO says, I'm incapacitated, you see, which then brings to the fourth some indication of reluctance to act. So I would then ask this question, in the problematic nature of the correspondence, whether the GCO has accepted that kind of a position to act temporarily as a accounting authority of SABC, regardless of what he has identified as a critical area in terms of that position. That is a question which is somewhat direct, so that we should know where we're sitting, that yes, there is a temporal board as a body which is somewhat there. And then the third area of my inquiry would be that indeed the literal nature of whatever that comes as a correspondence. You see, the identification of the risk would have been somewhat explained in that kind of a correspondence, inferred through that paragraph, that maybe to avert this sort of a risk, certain things ought to happen in a particular way.